Hi, everybody. I am with Dr. Jenna today, getting the results of my Dutch test. And I am so sorry. I forgot to hit record for the first part, but you didn't miss very much. And Jenna and I were just catching up and talking a little bit of stuff. So um, we're getting into the good stuff now. So I'm glad that, we recognized that we didn't hit record. So bear with us.
We're humans. Yay. That's okay. Everybody's allowed to be human. I was just in the process of going over Catherine's hormones with her, which is awesome. I'm so glad that she allowed me to do this with her so that other people can benefit and understand what it is that we're doing. And we were talking about the Dutch test and how it kind of looks and how it works. And I'm going to see if I can share my screen. Host disabled participants sharing. So we have to do that. While Catherine's doing that. So the Dutch test is a test that helps us understand the hormones, but also the pathways around the hormones and what they're doing. So it's not just the snapshot of the hormones, it's the metabolites of them. So the breakdown products of them. And that is what gives us more information about what's actually happening with the hormones, as opposed to just a snapshot in time of where something's at in your blood on that particular day. This actually tells us the whole full meal deal, which is awesome. And it's a urine test that you do, and it's over 3 days from day 19 to day 22. Yeah. All right, so let's see if I can share the screen.
Dr. Jenna is actually just getting ready to show me how awesome my estrogens are. And I was just saying to Dr. Jenna before we hit record, 2 years ago, my estrogens were not okay, which is what was impacting my breast tissue. So she was giving me some really good news that my estrogens look beautiful. So
they look fantastic. So we're just going to scroll down to look at, and you can see that now on the screen, I think, screen sharing. Yeah. Okay, so basically when we look at the estrogen, so this is the Dutch test, and you can see all the little dials will be dialed up, dialed down, this sort of thing. And so what we really want to look at is these pathways here, where we see the blue arrow, the red arrow, and the green arrow, right? And then that's represented in this chart. And so the chart, what we want to see is we want to see more green than anything else. And so that's what we're seeing here. We're seeing a lot more green, which means that this is the good estrogen pathway. So we have like the good witch and the bad witch, right? So this is the good estrogen pathway. So that means that we're going towards the estrogens that are healthy for our body, that aren't going to produce disease in our body, okay? The red pathway, that's the one we don't really want. And we see it's quite small. And so what we're going to do is we look here, we see the expected ranges, and we see that it should be between 7.5 and 11, and you're 6.9. So you're brilliant. You're right there in the middle of that range. So that's excellent. It means that your harmful estrogens are exactly where we want them to be. We're not seeing them above range, which means that you're not leaning towards things that are going to cause disease in your body.
Fantastic.
And what's really exciting about that is even if you were leaning towards that, then there are things that we can do to mitigate that, right? By binding to estrogens, by increasing antioxidant. We can see here glutathione detox. So we can provide the body with supplements like glutathione, which are going to detox those bad estrogens out of our body. Nice. And so we can see here 60 to 80 is what we want to see for the green. And you're actually like 87, which is awesome. So you can be over in the green pathway. That's okay. We're doing all right. And then we see the blue pathway over here. We want it to be 13 to 30. And you're low on this one, but that's also okay, because basically what's happening is everything's going over towards the green pathway, which is actually really good. It just tells us that the things that you're doing to make your diet, supplements, everything like that, that you are doing to improve your estrogen metabolism is actually working really effectively. So you're rocking. So the one thing that we did want to talk about though is methylation. So you can see here that this one's high.
Yeah.
And that just means that your green pathway is really high, but we can see over here methylation activity is really low, right? Oh. So the methylation activity that we were talking about, and we were just talking about this with SAMe. So SAMe is a methyl donor, and methyl groups are things that bind to things and make sure that they're going where they need to go. They ferry things around the body. They also activate DNA. One of the things that I tell people is like, imagine a blue ball and this is your DNA. And then imagine a yellow ball and the yellow ball goes flying around. This is a methyl group and it goes bing, and then the DNA becomes active. So methyl groups help activate DNA, and they help bind to excess hormones, bind to excess toxins, bind to excess things. So we can see that your methylation is a little bit low. Estrogens are a little bit high. They're good estrogens, but we're still increasing. We're going to increase methylation through SAMe and also through some magnesium for you. And then that should help facilitate pushing that pathway further through where it's supposed to go.
So I take magnesium biglycinate now.
Okay, perfect.
I've been taking that for a long time, but I haven't started the SAMe. So for everyone that's listening, what's really nice, guys, about this is that I had did my epigenetics with Dr. Jenna, and you guys all know that because I talked about it before. So it's so nice because today we've been going back and forth between my epigenetics and what we're seeing in my hormones as well too. So the two marry together so incredible. And from my epigenetics, Dr. Jenna had already shared with me that I needed to take certain things because of the gaps that were in some of my gene mutations. And SAMe was one of them, but it was hard to get the SAMe. So I finally got it 2 days ago. I found a great place to buy it that's not so expensive. And so I just got it 2 days ago. So I am going to start taking that. I wish I had gotten it 2 months ago now, but that's okay.
That's okay.
So yeah, I'll start taking that right away then too.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
That will help the methylation. So can you explain the methylation, Dr. Jenna, though? And like when you say it's low, like what does the methylation do?
Yeah, so your methylation, Catherine, would be coming from, so if it's okay if we share your epigenetic stuff. So this is a little bit about this as well.
Okay.
You can see my whole screen, right?
Yeah, this is great.
Okay. So we're going to go right back up here.
Yeah.
So this is your epigenetic stuff. And we know that you have a double MTHFR, right? Yeah. So AC, AC, CT, CT. So we know that your methylation is impaired by this process. So I'll show you what that means. Okay. And we're going to look here and see choline as well. It plays a role in this. And we see B12 here plays a role in this as well. Okay. And so bear with me as I scroll down.
Yep.
There we go. So this is the methylation pathway. So what is the methyl group? Remember I said you've got DNA and it's your blue ball, and then you have your yellow ball, methyl groups. So what are methyl groups? This right here, this CH3 is a methyl group. It's a carbon with 3 hydrogens on it.
Okay.
And so if you're aware, like carbons and hydrogens are very base molecules. And so what they do is they tend to neutralize toxins. And so that's what a methyl group does. It activates things and it binds to things that shouldn't be there in your body. So again, when we say in your hormones, methylation is low, methylation means that your amount of methyl groups are low. So your amount of things that are available to bind to the excess hormones that are there is low.
Gotcha.
And why is it low for you? Because you have an MTHFR right here where there's that yellow exclamation point. Yep. We have another one here, which is the next step of folate production. So folate, if you remember, non-active folate turns into active folate, and it has 5 methyl groups on it.
Right.
So when you don't have folate and it's not turning to active folate, you won't have methyl groups. Right. And they're so important for all of these things, for hormones, for binding to toxins, for activating DNA. That's why it's really important in cellular division for women for pregnancy. That's why they give folate, is to divide and grow cells, but cells won't divide and grow without doing methylation to activate the cells.
Right. Which again is why epigenetic testing is so important, because if they have a gene mutation, regardless if they give them folate or not, if they have a gene mutation or another one, that can offset that. So it's not doing what it's supposed to do.
Totally. And this is 47% of the population have an MTHFR gene mutation. And so when you consider that most practitioners are providing folate, right? Non-active folate, And then that will actually build up because it can't get through because of this
Right.
little gene mutation. Then that can cause more inflammation. And also you're not getting the active folate, and the folate pathway is also indicated in like miscarriages and birth defects. So
Incredible.
huge, huge, huge.
I know a
Huge,
lady
huge,
that's
huge, huge.
struggling with that, and I'm going to have a talk with her and just let her
Oh,
give her the
perfect.
information,
Yeah,
because that might be
excellent.
something.
I'm so happy about that. So this is your methylation. And
Okay.
so for a couple of reasons, methylation and your hormones are going to be really important. The other thing that we were just talking about was how Catherine, if you know her, is such an amazing human being, and how she has ample energy to just keep going and going and going is beyond all of us. So we were talking about how her hormone test reveals a little bit about that in her cortisol pathways. The cortisol, again, is the hormone that takes care of stress and pumps out in times of stress. And then we were looking at different pathways in her body that might link to that. So I'll show you where that comes into play.
Okay.
Okay, so we see these two here. We see estrogen metabolism and we see caffeine metabolism, and we see COMT. And then if we go down here, we see COMT, executive function, and COMT, stimulant sensitivity, right? So the way that I kind of describe this COMT pathway is like a sink.
Okay.
So in the sink, you're going to have a COMT is the enzyme that will determine how fast the sink flows. So some people will have a hairball in the sink, it'll be too slow. Some people will have just a super open sink and too much will flow out too fast. So for you, it looks like you have a bit of a hairball in your sink. And so what is going to be in your sink, what is in the sink is adrenaline, right? Dopamine and estrogen. So we know that from your past scans, from your breast scans, from thermography, which is what Catherine does, which is amazing, taking heated scans of body parts to see body parts that will detect thermal imagery to see if disease is brewing or not, because inflammation is first sign of disease, which is amazing. So in her previous scan, she had estrogen looking like it was too high, doing the things that it shouldn't do, which makes sense because we didn't have the methylation pathways working. We didn't have the antioxidant pathways working properly. So what will happen is, again, that sink will have higher estrogens in it, right? So making sure your methylation and whatnot is intact is going to be really important, because it will methylate those estrogens out of your body.
Yeah. Okay.
And because it won't be able to go out through the COMT pathway necessarily.
Okay.
And that's also why we have you doing calcium D-glucarate, so that we can bind to some of those estrogens and take them out of the body, because it's not getting out the normal pathway. And then we also have, you have a stimulant sensitivity, right? So the plot thickens. It's like, why do we have stimulant sensitivity? We do because, again, hairball in sink means higher adrenaline. And so you don't need extra stimulants to get that adrenaline. And then we also have potential higher dopamine, but we also have another gene mutation that shows that you have a little lower dopamine. So this is why when we take drugs for ADD, they often will have a stimulant in them. Okay. And for some people, that you're actually like a perfect example of this. I'm actually really happy this is happening right now, because
Okay.
there's only one medication that is used for ADD that doesn't have a stimulant in it. There's only one. Okay.
Wow.
But if you're your picture where you have a slow sink for adrenaline, but you do have a little downregulation in one of your dopamine pathways, and what we were talking about before was, the ability to kind of focus, and we've got a little bit of squirrel focus, right? Where it's like one thing, next thing, right? And as opposed to just sitting down and focusing, that oftentimes comes from dopamine. So if you were to go and a dopamine downregulation, which you have a little one right here, CT, you have one of the 4 that's downregulated, and this is one of the major ones. So essentially that can cause you to be a little less, have a little less ability to focus. But if you were to go and get ADD medication, you would be prescribed one of the medications that would likely have, because there's only one that doesn't have a stimulant in it, you would be provided one with a stimulant. That medication would not work for you.
I don't need more
It
stimulation.
would make you go crazy. And that's why we see people who are like, yeah, I took it, but it made me feel horrible. It made me feel awful. Well, this is why, because no one's actually looking at people's genetics to see what is your actual makeup, what do you need, and what don't you need in your body. So for you, you would not need anything stimulating. What we need to do is we need to tone down and we need to open up that pathway a little bit. And that's the SAMe. It helps with facilitating that pathway. And the magnesium bisglycinate helps with facilitating that sync. Keeping stimulants out of your body helps with that as well. So like no green tea, no caffeine, no lowering sugars, those kinds of things. And then what we would also do is maybe potentially provide your body with a little mucuna, which will help facilitate your dopamine pathways. Now, I have to put in the caveat here, everybody that's listening, you all are not allowed to go out and get this stuff. Okay? Like,
yes, because remember, everybody
is different. We just highlighted that. Okay. So like you cannot go out and be like, oh, she said that this works for this. No, that's the old paradigm of medicine. That's the old paradigm of doing things. This is the new paradigm where we do your genetic testing and we see exactly what it is that you're missing and what you need. Okay.
Yep, absolutely.
Not only that, one thing that's safe for somebody else is not safe for somebody else. So please do not do that. Okay. Caveat done. So for you, we would add a little bit of mucuna, which can potentially bring up that dopamine, which can potentially bring that focus, right? Okay. So, and then lowering a little bit of that adrenaline may help you to be able to relax in bed a little bit longer in the morning and not need to like get up and go, which then is going to be good for your adrenals, for that DHES, where your adrenals are pumping out a little too much cortisol. So let's just go take a quick peek at that. Okay. So we looked over here on Catherine's adrenals and we saw that DHEA is like quite high. It's not necessarily that this is happening, but we know there's many reasons why this could be high, but we know Catherine is somebody who is go. So we are assuming that for her, what it means is that she's just revving really high. Yep. And so we want to tone down that rev a little bit. So we're going to provide her with some ashwagandha to just chill out that adrenals, give it a little bit more protection, but also look on that other side to tone down the stimulant activity in the genetic side of things, so that predisposition. And then also when we have a little bit of low dopamine, this is really cool. It's really great that we're doing this. Like we can see it all coming together. Yeah. When we have low dopamine, we will have a little bit less focus, a little more ADD-like behaviors. I'm not allowed to diagnose ADD, but just we have those behaviors, right? Yeah. So what can happen? Oh, I had it for a second. It was all coming together, but give me 1 second. It'll come right back. No. There it is. Okay. When we have lower dopamine, we have a lower reward system. So that means that we have lower ability to receive reward for the things that we do. So that translates into needing to do more in order to receive, to reach that threshold of feeling like we really are accomplishing things and doing what we want to do. So that's very much the picture of why it is you may be feeling the need to go and do all of this stuff, right? And to live, like a lot of us are sitting back and going like, how are you taking on all of that stuff? Well, you've got a little higher adrenaline, you've got a little lower dopamine. That equals you've got the energy to do it, but you also have the lower sense of reward from the things that you're getting. So you need to take on more in order to get that reward, that dopamine hit, right? Absolutely. So if we are able to provide you with that dopamine hit through mucuna, which is a bean, brown, it's called velvet bean, which is an amino acid that comes from Brazil. So what we do is we put a little bit of that in either breakfast in the morning. You put like a little quarter of a teaspoon. It's pretty gritty, but whatever. We're used to taking
I don't care. It helps my body. It's going.
Or you can just put in a little warm water and you can shoot it back. Okay. And so basically that provides the dopamine so that you don't need to rev as high. You don't need to go out and accomplish as much in order to feel that reward from life, which is really nice. And then that can take some of the stress off the adrenals. And then we can also lower that adrenaline picture. So everything should kind of come back into a little bit more of a homeostasis. So it's really great. I'm really grateful that we did both your Dutch test and your epigenetics, because we can see how they're inextricably linked, because a lot of practitioners will look at your Dutch test and go, okay, maybe cortisol is revving a little high. Let's give you the things that we need to give you to bring cortisol down. Okay, ashwagandha. But why is that happening in the first place for you? Why is it that you're a person that like gets out of bed in the morning and like is just go, 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 go? It's in your epigenetics. That's why.
Right.
So one little side effect is you may notice that you might not feel so go, go, go. Which,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Which would be nice, but your ego may still be like, wait, why am I not go, go, going? I should be go, go, going, right? Because that's the persona that we've created, right? But the actual body feeling is a different feeling when we start to treat some of these things.
Yeah. And it's so interesting, Dr. Jenna, because, you know, for everyone who's listening, again, right, we all are wired differently. And when you do things, and I'm going to tell you, I'll be honest with you, I have been doing the Dr. Joe Dispenza meditations and religiously. I read his book, you know, the changing the habits of being yourself and all that stuff. And I've done it twice. So there's like in the back of the book, there's like a 4-week, very specific meditation that you do week over week, you know, and I do know that notice some changes, but I will tell you, it's like, it's how I'm wired, right? With all of this stuff between my epigenetics and now the Dutch test and really understanding why I do some of the things I do and how I'm always, for people who are listening that don't know me well, I will tell you my whole life I've been like this. Okay. As far back as I can remember, always get one thing done. And then I'm, you know, fast forward. Okay. What else can I do? Right. It's the same thing with thermography. I drive myself crazy sometimes because my brain never shuts off because of what else can I do to help people? What else can I, and so it's not allowing one thing that I've just accomplished to just really seat itself, right? And just enjoy that aspect of helping people. I'm always looking for, okay, well, what else? What else can I research to help? What else? Right. So, but I'm like that in my personal life too. Right. So I will be honest with you. My husband will be ecstatic if I slow down.
Yeah. I usually see that. It's usually the partners who are like, really? They're going to be able to just
I know I stress him out. He's the nicest, kindest, sweetest man you'd ever want to meet. And he just goes along with everything. But I know he's exhausted, right? And I know there's some days I think, oh, that's a sin. Like, and I always tell him, like, you don't have to do that. I can take care of myself. No, you know. But again, he's revved differently than I am. Like I was telling you earlier, you know, he likes to get up in the morning and he's very sleepy. We have this little thing on Facebook. There was these 2 little chihuahuas, and the little chihuahua was like in the window, all happy, ready to go. And the other one was like kind of half asleep. And it was funny. He seen it and he said to me, he goes, honey, he goes, that's you and me. But he said, when you wake up, he goes, you're just like the chihuahua that's just like going. So, you know, for him, he's slow. He likes to have his coffee and enjoy the morning. And like I was telling you, as soon as my eyeballs open, it's like getting on, my feet hit the floor and I go. But that's just how I've been wired. But now I understand why, because I have tried various things, even in my meditation, which
absolutely
to do all these things to kind of slow myself down. But that's where I've struggled the most. And I'll tell you, this is amazing today to have my epigenetics and the Dutch test together, because now I'm getting a fuller picture. And for those of you listening, please remember, you are so individual from everybody else. And I've said this before, right? Sometimes you feel like you're a dartboard and you're just taking a dart and throwing it and hoping that, you know, this new mineral or this new supplement will help you because boy, everybody else is talking about it. But I'll tell you, this has really opened my eyes.
Huge.
It's really opened my eyes for myself. My daughter had hers done as well too, really opened her eyes. So I cannot say thank you enough, Dr. Jenna, and I will be quiet because I know there's some other things you want to talk to me about.
No, that's okay. I'm curious to know how your daughter's doing.
Yes, she's doing well.
Good. Oh yeah, no, it's incredible when we can actually look at the root cause of it. And when you were talking, it was kind of coming up to me that one of the byproducts that I've had with this work is people being the way that they are and finally understanding why. So for you, it's that adrenaline picture with a little lower dopamine. It's like you're go, but also need the reward system from that, right? Which makes perfectly sense. And it's good that we are the way that we are. It's good that we are humans, but where we can see it's taking a little bit of a toll is in your cortisol. Okay. So then that's can lead to burnout, right? And that's not a good thing. Especially if you burned out and then you still had adrenaline and then you're like, you can't get out of bed, but you've got a lot of adrenaline. It's going to equal really restless human syndrome. So the other aspect of this is people's personalities and how they are being comes into play with addictive personalities. So for addictive personalities, we'll see even lower dopamine and possibly lower adrenaline. And so these are the kids that got in trouble in school. They would be deemed like ADD, and they, would reach for substances like marijuana, like alcohol, like other drugs to help them get the dopamine that they need, that they're not getting. And then they also have a lower adrenaline, so they don't have that go, go, go. So they need something to help motivate them and get them kind of moving. So sometimes people will even reach for more stimulant drugs like meth or something of that nature, or cocaine. And then they don't know why they have an addiction. They tried meditating, they tried going to recovery meetings, they tried doing this, but they keep falling off the wagon, and they're going to keep falling off the wagon until we address behind the scenes of what's going on for them. Once we can see in their epigenetics what they're missing and we can provide it to them from a natural, healthy source, literally, Catherine, I've seen miracles of like addictions just drop away.
That's amazing.
Like years of people struggling, and then all of a sudden they're like, yeah, I just don't really do that meth anymore. Yeah, I just don't really drink alcohol anymore. Yeah, I don't really smoke pot anymore. And it's like, oh my gosh. And you start to realize that these poor beings were only doing the best that they could for themselves by trying to reach for these things in the first place, because they were missing things behind the scenes that they needed, and their bodies were smart in trying to reach for them, but they have the negative side effects, right?
Yep. Amazing.
It's amazing. Utterly incredible, utterly mind-blowing. So that is really, we've touched on most everything for your picture.
Yep.
I just want to see if I missed anything. Methylation, we talked about. Testosterone in the blood, we talked about. Thyroid and the cortisol. So that's really most everything for your picture that we wanted to touch base on for today. So we talked about testosterone. You can see Catherine's is really low here. And sometimes on the Dutch test, you can have a little enzyme that you naturally have in your body that will break down the reagent that they use to test. And so it'll show a false positive of low testosterone. So what we do from that situation is we get someone to go and do an actual blood test to see where their testosterone is at as a secondary
follow-up,
a second opinion, essentially. And then we can see, okay, is testosterone actually low? Do we need to do something about it? Or is it just false positive? And then we talked about the cortisol and the thyroid being part of the picture, drawing on the rest of the body. And then we talked about cortisol and ashwagandha, and we talked about your pathways and upregulating the dopamine and downregulating the adrenaline.
Awesome. So just as a follow-up, guys, I'm going to go get my blood work done for Dr. Jenna so that I can check out that testosterone. We think that it is actually legit for me because I have the symptoms, but we need to make sure, right? So I'm going to go see my MD and I'll get that done. My thyroid, as well as next week, I get my own breast scan and thyroid scan through thermography done again as well. So I'll have all of that to then do a follow-up with Dr. Jenna as well. So I've got lots to certainly keep me busy, but I'll tell you, my heart and soul feels really good because, again, I'm not treating my body like a dartboard and just throwing stuff at it. I know specifically what my body needs now through the Dutch test and the epigenetics, and I cannot recommend this highly enough. And no, I do not get paid for saying that, but my passion.
None of us do. We just love it, and we see people being helped by it, and it's like we can't keep this to ourselves because like it's time for the medical system revolution.
It really is.
Right, and it's individualized care based on people's genetic makeup and like their own individual makeup, your individual blueprint of your health, and also your individual hormones at a deeper look. And
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Dr. Jenna. And
naturopathic doctor too, just so we have to qualify. Naturopathic doctor.
Naturopathic.
So that nobody thinks I'm a doctor, but I am a doctor. So I have it on my my plaque says Doctor of Naturopathic Medicine. So
perfect. So Thank you very much. And for everyone, thank you so much for joining. Please leave comments below. If you need Dr. Jenna's contact information, please let me know. I will put it in the comments as well too when I post this video. And if you have any questions or you really want to ask me some questions about my epigenetics, my specific report, and my Dutch test report, I am happy to share that with you. I'm happy to jump on a quick call with you. Dr. Jenna, I give you full, range to share my test results with other people as you're educating them. I'm fine with that. That's not a problem. So thanks so much, everyone. Take care.
Bye for now.
I just got to stop this, Jenna, 1 second.